The bullet was already in the air when Elena Thorne realized she'd run out of prayers, not aimed at her, never at her. The universe had learned that lesson years ago. She was harder to kill than hope, meaner than winter, more patient than grief. No. This one was meant for the kid, 23 years old. Cocky grin, bad jokes. The kind of soldier who thought confidence and competence were the same damn thing. The kind who reminded her of someone she'd buried 8 years ago in a flag-draped box she still couldn't look at without her chest caving in. The kind she'd sworn she wouldn't let die tonight. The ridge was chaos. Wind screaming at 80 miles per hour, snow thick enough to drown in, muzzle flashes painting the storm in strobe light horror, 11 bodies already cooling in the drifts behind her, 11 men who'd come to kill them. 11 decisions she'd made in fractions of seconds, 11 futures erased, her team scrambling down the slope toward the helicopter that was supposed to mean salvation, supposed to mean they'd all made it. Except they hadn't. Not yet, because the hostiles were surging. One final desperate push. And the kid, Deck Wyatt, though she hadn't known his full name until 3 hours ago, when her world collapsed in on itself, the kid had stopped running, turned back, screaming her name through the wind like she was something worth dying for. Idiot, beautiful, brave, stupid idiot. The hostile raised his rifle, clear shot. The kind Elena could make in her sleep, the kind she'd made 100 times before without blinking. But her rifle was empty. Bolt locked back, magazine spent, nothing left but muscle memory and the sick understanding that sometimes you can't save everyone. Sometimes you have to choose. So she ran, full sprint, legs burning, lungs screaming. The bullet already traveling, mathematics and physics and fate converging on a point in space where a boy who looked too much like her dead brother was about to stop existing, and Elena Thorne, Winter Ghost, legendary operator, the woman who'd survived things that should have killed her soul, made a choice. She stepped in front of the gun. The headstone was wet, not from rain. December in Virginia didn't rain, it froze. Turned the world into something sharp and unforgiving, appropriate. The universe had always had a sense of humor about suffering. No, the wetness was from her, from the thermos of coffee she'd brought, from the ritual she'd performed every year for 8 years now. Pour. Wait. Watch it steam in the cold. Let it go cold because Danny wasn't there to drink it. Never would be. Corporal Daniel James Wyatt. November 3, 1993, August 17, 2016. Beloved son, brave soldier. Forever 23, Alina traced the dates with her finger. 34 years old and her hand still shook when she touched his name. 34 years old and she still couldn't say the words out loud. You were supposed to come home. You promised. But promises meant nothing to IEDs, meant nothing to desert roads in provinces whose names she still couldn't pronounce without tasting bile. I mean, nothing when your little brother was blown apart, or the job you taught him to love, the job that was supposed to make him a man, make him proud, make him, man, Elena didn't need to. She knew the voice. Lieutenant Callum Shaw, 12 years her senior, father of 3. The kind of officer who still believed rules mattered, who still thought chain of command could protect you from the things that happen when the helicopter's waiting, Shaw said quietly. Storm's moving in faster than anticipated. If we don't leave in 20 minutes, I know, Captain. I said I know, Lieutenant. The words came out harder than she intended. Sharper, she forced herself to breathe. Count to 3. The way the therapist had taught her before she'd stopped going to therapy. I'll be there in 10. Shaw hesitated. She could feel him behind her, could feel his concern, his worry, his unspoken question. Are you okay? No, she wasn't. Hadn't been since August 17, 2016. Wouldn't be until someone invented time travel and let her go back and tell Danny to stay home. Tell him the Army didn't need him as much as she did. Tell him that being a hero wasn't worth the cost. But Shaw didn't ask, because Shaw was smart, and because asking meant Elena might answer. Might crack open the box where she kept all the things that would make her useless, unreliable, dangerous. So he just said 10 minutes and walked away. Elena stayed, stared at the stone, at the dates, or at the empty space where a life should have been. I'm going back out, she told Danny's ghost. Montana this time, observation post. Nothing dangerous. Just babysitting sensors and keeping rookies from freezing to death. The wind picked up, rattled the bare tree branches overhead. Shaw says there might be hostiles in the sector. Unconfirmed, probably nothing. But if it is something, she stopped, swallowed. If it is something, I'll do what you always said I was good at. Danny didn't answer. Dead brothers never did, but she could hear his voice anyway, the way he'd sounded at 20, at 22, at 23, right before he deployed for the last time. You're the toughest person I know, Elena. You've got this. Except she hadn't. Not when it mattered. Not when he needed her to use an ounce of that toughness to keep him from getting on that plane, from volunteering for that patrol, from doing the thing that turned him into a name on a stone instead of a person with a future. She placed her hand on the headstone one more time, cold, unyielding. Like everything else in her life. I'll see you when I get back, she lied. And then Captain Elena Thorne, call sign Winter Ghost. Over 24 confirmed kills over a career that had hollowed her out and scraped her raw, turned and walked toward the helicopter that would take her to Montana, to the mountains, to the storm, to the boy who looked exactly like Danny. The Viper outpost didn't look like much from the air, just a concrete bunker squatting on a ridge like a tombstone, marking the death of optimism. 50 by 30 feet, reinforced walls, satellite uplink, enough supplies to last 6 soldiers 3 weeks if they rationed, or 3 days if they didn't. The kind of place command sent you when they wanted you forgotten. The helicopter landed in a whirlwind of snow and rotor wash. Elena grabbed her pack, 40 pounds of gear that felt like 40 ounces now, after so many years of carrying it, and jumped down before the skids even touched earth. The cold hit her like a fist, not the bitter cold of Virginia winters. This was Montana cold, the kind that found every gap in your clothing, every weakness in your resolve, the kind that killed you if you stopped moving. Good. She'd always worked better when death was close. Shaw was right behind her. Then Chief Weston Cade, 42 years, 240 pounds of scar tissue and bad attitude, call sign Flint, because he was exactly that sharp and that unyielding. Then Petty Officer Marcus Brennan, the medic, compact and dark-haired, with the steady hands of someone who'd put too many people back together. Then Petty Officer Everett Hale, 24, nervous energy wrapped in tactical gear, kind who talked too much when he was scared, which was always. And then the kid, Elena saw him last, stepping down from the helicopter with the kind of swagger that made her chest tighten. 23, maybe 24, tall, broad-shouldered, that particular brand of handsome that came from being young enough not to know the world, was a meat grinder. He was grinning, actually grinning, like this was an adventure. Like being stuck on a frozen mountain in the middle of nowhere was something to celebrate. Like Danny used to grin, Elena's hand went to her chest, to the dog tags under her shirt. Danny's dog tags, the ones she wore because giving them to his mother would have meant accepting he was gone. Would have meant moving on. Moving on was for people who deserved it, Captain Thorne. She blinked, focused. Shaw was standing in front of her. Concern written across his face in all caps, bold. You good? No, fine. You sure? Because you just... I'm fine, Lieutenant. She forced herself to look at him, to meet his eyes, to lie convincingly. Let's get inside before we all freeze to death out here. Shaw studied her for 3 seconds longer than comfortable, then nodded. Move out. The team grabbed their gear and started toward the bunker. Elena fell in at the rear. Watch the kid, the rookie. She needed to stop thinking of him as the kid, as he hauled his pack like it weighed nothing, as he laughed at something Everett said. as he radiated the kind of confidence that got soldiers killed. The kind of confidence Danny had died. Stop, she told herself. He's not Danny. He's just another operator, another body to keep alive until extraction. That's all. But her hands stayed pressed against the dog tags, and she couldn't make herself believe the lie. The bunker was exactly as terrible as she'd expected. Concrete walls, weeping condensation, a single space heater fighting a battle it would never win. 6 cots arranged along the walls like coffins waiting for occupants. A radio station in the corner that looked older than Elena. Frost on the floor, frost in her lungs every time she exhaled. Home sweet home. Well, Everett said, dropping his pack with a thud. This is cozy. This is a shithole, Flint corrected. The chief had already claimed the cot nearest the door. Territorial. Smart. The door was the first line of defense, and the first casualty when defense failed. Marcus was unpacking his medical kit with the methodical precision of someone who knew he'd need it. Shaw was checking the radio, testing frequencies, making sure they weren't completely cut off from the world. And the rookie was staring at Elena, not obviously, not aggressively, just watching her. The way you watched something you couldn't quite figure out, something that didn't fit the pattern. His eyes were hazel, light, the kind that probably got him far with girls who didn't know better, the kind that made him look younger than he was. Danny's eyes had been brown, so that was different. That was something, except it wasn't, because the shape was the same. The tilt of the head, the way he stood with his weight on his left foot, even the way he held his rifle, relaxed but ready, casual but competent. God. It was like Danny had crawled out of her nightmares and put on a stranger's face, ma'am. Elena blinked. Focused. The rookie had crossed the bunker, was standing 3 feet away. Close enough that she could see the stubble on his jaw, the confidence in his eyes, the assumption that the world owed him answers. Corporal Deckard Wyatt, he said, holding out his hand. Most people call me Deck. You're Captain Thorne, right? The winter ghost? She didn't take his hand, didn't move, just looked at him. At the easy smile, at the expectation of reciprocation. Captain works fine, she said. The smile faltered. Just for a second. Right. Sorry, Captain. He lowered his hand, shifted his weight. I've heard stories. About Syria. About the factory siege. Over 24 kills in 18 hours. I mean, that's classified. Oh, yeah, of course. Sorry, he stepped back, the confidence cracking. Good, I didn't mean to. We clear on the chain of command, Corporal. She let her voice drop. Let it go flat. The tone she used when she needed someone to stop talking and start obeying. Lieutenant Shaw is your direct superior. You answer to him, he answers to me. That's the hierarchy. You don't have questions for me. You have questions for him. Understood? Yes, ma'am, good. Then find a cot and stow your gear. We've got a briefing in 20. She turned away before he could respond, before she had to look at that face any longer. That face that wasn't Danny's, but was too close. Too familiar. Too Thorne, Shaw's voice. Quiet, careful. In across to the radio station where he stood with headphones half on, his expression grim. What? Weather report just came in. Blizzards accelerating, Category 4. Should hit us in 6 hours, maybe less. Satellite coverage? Minimal solar flare activity is screwing with communications. We'll have maybe 30% uplink for the next 12 hours. After that, he shrugged, we're blind. Elena processed this. Ran the scenarios. Blizzard plus communication blackout plus isolated outpost equaled exactly one thing, vulnerability. The kind of vulnerability that made soft targets out of trained operators. Air support, grounded. The storm's too severe. Even medevac is off the table until it passes. How long? 12 hours minimum, maybe 18 hours, alone, cut off, in a bunker that wouldn't stand against a sustained assault. This was bad. This was... Captain? Shaw was watching her, reading her face. You thinking what I'm thinking? That this is exactly the kind of setup where things go sideways? Elena exhaled slowly. Yeah. I'm thinking that command briefed you on the intelligence reports, right? The thermal signatures in this sector? She nodded. 3 weeks ago, unconfirmed movement, communications intercepts, kind of shadows that might be hostiles or might be nothing. Command hadn't been sure, so they'd sent her, the winter ghost, the woman who could confirm threats without needing backup. The woman who was already dead inside, so losing her wouldn't matter as much. I'm thinking we go weapons hot, Shaw said quietly. Defensive posture. Overlapping fields of fire. Worst case, we're paranoid. Best case, we're ready when they come. Shaw nodded, glanced past her toward where Deck was unpacking his gear, where Everett was talking too fast, where Marcus was organizing medical supplies, and Flint was cleaning his rifle with the focus of a man preparing for war. That kid, Shaw said. Wyatt, he's green, hasn't seen real combat, just training scenarios. Simulations, I know. If this goes bad, I know, Lieutenant. Elena's voice came out harder than intended. I'll keep him alive, Shaw studied her. Those 3 seconds again. That pause that said he knew more than he should. That said he'd read her file, her psyche vals, the parts she thought she'd buried, but all he said was good. Because his mother already lost someone in Afghanistan. Hate for her to lose another, the words hit like shrapnel. Elena's hand went to her chest, to the dog tags, but she caught herself, forced her arm down, forced her face into something neutral. What? Shaw's expression shifted, guarded, like he'd just realized he'd said too much. Nothing, forget it, Lieutenant. It's not relevant. He turned back to the radio, adjustment complete. Conversation over. Just keep an eye on him, yeah? Kid's got potential. Be ashamed to waste it. Elena wanted to push, wanted to demand answers, wanted to know what Shaw knew, but training kicked in, discipline, the understanding that some questions led to answers that broke you. So she just said, copy that, and walked away, but her hand found the dog tags again, and she couldn't make herself let go. The briefing lasted 15 minutes. Shaw laid it out clean, crisp, the way officers did when they needed everyone on the same page before chaos rewrote the book. They were here for 3 days. Observation and intelligence gathering. Monitor the sensor grids. Watch for movement. Report anything unusual. Standard procedure. Routine deployment. Except nothing about this felt routine. Elena stood against the back wall and watched the team absorb the information. Flint nodded along, his face carved granite, already running scenarios. Marcus asked practical questions about medical evac timelines. Everett fidgeted with his gear, nervous energy manifesting as movement because sitting still meant thinking and thinking meant fear. And Deck sat forward on his cot with his elbows on his knees, listening, focused. But there was something in his posture, something in the set of his shoulders, confidence bleeding into arrogance, the assumption that he knew what was coming, that he was ready. He wasn't. Nobody was ready the first time bullets started flying for real, the first time a human being aimed at you with the specific intention of ending your existence. Training could prepare you for the mechanics, muscle memory, the how, but it couldn't prepare you for the why it mattered. The sudden, sharp understanding that death wasn't abstract anymore, wasn't theoretical, was right there, 3 feet away, wearing a face and carrying a rifle and deciding that you were the problem that needed solving. Elena had learned that lesson at 26, Syria, a mission that was supposed to be simple extraction, in and out, no complications, except Danny had died 1 year before that mission, August 2016, 1 year of Elena pretending she was fine, functional, mission capable, and then the ambush in Syria, August 2017, the factory, the Russians, and 18 hours of killing, because if she stopped, if she gave herself 1 second to feel that the grief would drown her, so she didn't stop, over 2 dozen confirmed kills. Not because she was the best shooter, not because she was the smartest tactician, because she was already empty, already dead, just a ghost running on momentum and hate, the winter ghost, Captain. Elena snapped back to the present. Shaw was looking at her. Everyone was looking at her. Waiting, you have anything to add? Shaw asked. She pushed off the wall, crossed to the center of the bunker where they could all see her, where she could see them. 6 soldiers about to spend 3 days in a frozen box waiting for something bad to maybe happen. 5. 5 soldiers. The 6th was already a ghost. Rules of engagement, Elena said. Her voice came out flat, authoritative, the captain's voice. Not the sisters. We're on U.S. soil, but we're in a disputed sector. If we take fire, you are authorized to return fire. Aim to neutralize, not to kill unless necessary. But if it's necessary, she paused. Let them see her eyes. Let them understand what she was. Then you do it fast and you do it clean. No hesitation, no second guessing. You pull that trigger and you end the threat, because the second you hesitate is the second they end you instead. Clear? Nods all around. Flint's grim. Marcus is steady. Everett's quick and nervous. Shaw's slow and understanding. Deck's eager. God help her. The kid was eager. One more thing, Elena said, and this time she let herself look directly at Deck. Let him see the weight behind her words. Some of you are experienced. Some of you aren't. I don't care about your training scores. I don't care about your qualifications. Out here in the real world, the only thing that matters is whether you can function when everything goes wrong. When you're cold and scared and convinced you're about to die. That's when I need you sharp. That's when I need you listening. Because the difference between going home and going home in a box is usually about 3 seconds and one bad decision. Don't make bad decisions. Silence. Then Deck raised his hand, like they were in a classroom, like this was Q&A instead of the moment before potential catastrophe. Sir, ma'am, Captain, he stumbled over the words. What if we don't know what the right decision is? Then you trust the person who does. Elena's eyes locked on his, held. You trust your training, you trust your team, and if all else fails, you trust me, because I've been doing this since you were in high school, Corporal. I've seen things go wrong in ways you can't imagine, and I'm still here, which means I know how to survive. So when I give you an order, you follow it. No questions, no debates, no heroics. You do exactly what I say exactly when I say it. That's how you make it through the next 3 days. That's how we all make it through. Understood? Yes, ma'am, but there was something in his eyes. Something that said he didn't fully believe it, didn't fully accept that he wasn't ready. That confidence, that certainty, that thing that was going to get him killed. Elena broke eye contact first. Turned to Shaw. Anything else, Lieutenant? Watch rotation, Shaw said. 2-hour shifts. 2 on, 4 off. Flint and I will take first watch. Brennan and Hale, you're up next. Thorne and Wyatt, you've got the 0400 to 0600 slot. Of course they did. Of course Shaw would pair her with the rookie, would put them together in the dead hours when exhaustion made mistakes easy, when she'd have to watch him, have to keep him functional, have to keep him alive. Copy that, she said. Shaw dismissed them. The team scattered to their cots, started the familiar rhythm of settling in. Gear stowed, weapons checked, last letters written to people who might become widows. The pre-deployment ritual that every soldier knew. The preparation for the possibility that this might be the deployment you didn't come back from. Elena found her assigned cot closest to the back wall, exactly where she would have chosen anyway, and started unpacking. Rifle, sidearm, ammunition, tactical vest, all the tools of her trade. All the things that kept her breathing when everything else failed. And the dog tags, always the dog tags. She pulled them out, let them dangle from her fingers. Corporal Daniel James Wyatt. She read the name for the 1,000th time, the 10,000th time, the millionth. Read it like reading could rewrite history, could bring him back, could undo August 17, 2016. Hey, Elena's hand closed around the tags, fast, automatic. She looked up. Deck was standing 3 feet away, again. Still that easy posture, still that confidence. But something else too, curiosity. The kind that got cats killed, yeah? He glanced at her hand, at the shape of the tags hidden in her fist. I wanted to apologize for earlier. I didn't mean to overstep. I was just excited, I guess. First real deployment. First time working with someone like you, someone like her, a ghost, a killer, a woman who'd traded her soul for a body count. Don't be excited, Corporal, Elena said quietly. Excitement gets you killed. Fear keeps you sharp. Remember that, right? Yes, ma'am. He shifted his weight, that nervous tell. Can I ask you something? No, it's about... I said no. Deck's jaw tightened. The first flash of frustration. Good. Frustration was better than confidence. Frustration meant he was starting to understand she wasn't his friend, wasn't his mentor, was just the person standing between him and the grave. With respect, Captain, I'm trying to learn, trying to understand how operators like you, operators like me, don't exist, Wyatt. She stood, slow, deliberate, moved into his space until she was close enough to see the flecks of gold in those hazel eyes. Close enough to smell the fear he was hiding under bravado. We're not something you become. We're something that happens to you. And if you're smart, you'll hope it never does. Because the cost, her voice caught, just for a second, just enough. The cost is everything you are, everything you could have been. And you don't get it back, ever. So stop looking at me like I'm some goal to aspire to. I'm a cautionary tale in a uniform. Nothing more. She stepped back, turned away, conversation over, message delivered. But Deck didn't move, didn't retreat, just stood there with his jaw set and his eyes burning and that stubborn tilt to his head that was so familiar it made her chest ache. My mom lost my best friend in Afghanistan, Deck said quietly. 8 years ago, IED. He was 23. Elena froze. His name was Danny. Deck continued. Daniel Wyatt, my mom took it hard, real hard, because he was like a son to her, like a brother to me. We grew up together, enlisted together. And then one day he just wasn't there anymore. The world narrowed, tunnel vision, the way it did right before you pulled a trigger, right before you made the kill. But Elena couldn't move, couldn't breathe, couldn't. So I get it, Deck said. I get that this isn't a game. I get that people die. I watched my mom bury someone she loved like family, watched her break. And I swore I'd never let that happen to anyone else. That I'd be good enough, smart enough, strong enough to bring everyone home. That's why I'm here. That's why I do this. Elena's hand was still closed around the dog tag, squeezing so tight the metal edges cut into her palm. Drew blood, Daniel Wyatt, Danny, whose best friend was named. No, 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 no. She turned, slow, looked at Deck's face, really looked at the shape of his jaw, tilt of his eyes. The way he stood, Danny's letters had mentioned his best friend, a kid named Deck, short for Deckard. The two of them inseparable since 3rd grade, planning to enlist together, serve together, come home together, except Danny hadn't come home, and now here was Deck, Daniel's Deck, wearing Danny's dream. Living Danny's life, standing 3 feet away with no idea that the woman he was trying to impress was the sister Danny had talked about. The sister who was supposed to come home and teach them to shoot. Sister who'd failed, who hadn't been there, who'd let him die alone. Elena's throat closed, her vision blurred. For one terrible second she thought she might break. Right here, right now, in front of everyone. Then training kicked in, discipline. The walls she'd built brick by brick over 8 years. Get some rest, Corporal, she managed. You're going to need it. And she walked away before he could see her hands shaking. Before he could see the ghost bleeding through the cracks. Storm hit at 2100 hours. Not gradually, not with warning. Just a sudden, brutal shift from bad weather to apocalyptic nightmare. The wind went from 30 miles per hour to 80 in the span of 5 minutes. The snow went from falling to horizontal. Visibility dropped to nothing, less than nothing, and the bunker started groaning. Jesus, Everett muttered from his cot. It sounds like the whole mountain's trying to tear us apart, it is, Flint said. He was sitting near the door with his rifle across his lap. Calm, unbothered, the kind of calm that came from surviving worse. Storm like this, the wind pressure's insane. This bunker's rated for it. But that doesn't mean it won't complain, comforting, Everett said. Elena sat on her cot in the corner and listened, not to the conversation, to the storm, to the sound of nature trying to kill them through sheer force. She'd been in blizzards before. Montana, Alaska, once in Norway during a joint training op that had gone exactly as badly as everyone predicted. But this one felt different, felt personal, like the universe had finally decided she'd outlived her usefulness, her luck, her borrowed time. Maybe it was right. Her hand went to the dog tags under her shirt. Habit now, reflex. The only thing that felt real anymore, Danny. She turned the name over in her mind, let it sit there, heavy, thorned. I found him. I found Deck, your Deck, the friend you wrote about, the one who was supposed to have your back, the one you were supposed to come home with. He doesn't know who I am, doesn't know you had a sister, doesn't know I'm the reason you're dead, because she was. That was the truth of it. The thing she'd never said out loud but knew in her bones. If she'd been there, if she'd been the one deployed to Afghanistan instead of Syria, she would have seen the signs, would have known the patrol was wrong, would have stopped Danny from going out that day, would have saved him. But she'd been busy making a career, making a name, making captain, while her baby brother was making the decision that turned him into a name on a stone. The radio crackled. Everyone looked up. Shaw crossed to put on the headphones, listened. His face went carefully neutral, the way it did when news was bad, but he didn't want to cause panic. Panic command, he said when he pulled the headphones off. Satellite coverage is degrading faster than predicted. Solar flare knocked out 2 relays. We're down to 15% uplink. Maybe less. How long until it's restored? Marcus asked. Unknown. Could be 6 hours. Could be 18. They're working on it, so we're cut off, Beck said. He was sitting on his cot, lacing his boots, getting ready for his watch rotation, even though it wasn't for 3 hours. Nervous energy, the need to do something. Anything. No air support, no communication, no backup. We've got each other, Flint said. That's backup enough? Against what? We don't even know if there's a threat. Kid's got a point, Everett said. Those intelligence reports were vague as hell. Possible hostile activity. That could mean anything. Could mean nothing. Shaw didn't respond, just looked at Elena. That look again. The one that said, you're the expert. You're the one who's done this before. Tell them. Elena stood, crossed to the center of the bunker. Let them see her. Let them read her body language. Shoulders squared, spine straight. The posture of someone who'd made peace with death a long time ago. If there's a threat, she said, we'll know soon enough. And when we do, you follow orders. You stay in your sectors. You don't freelance. You don't play hero. You shoot when I tell you to shoot, and you stop when I tell you to stop. That's how we survive this. And if the threat's bigger than we can handle, Deck asked. Not challenging, genuinely curious. What then? Elena looked at him. At Danny's face wearing a stranger's skin, at the boy who didn't know he was standing in a dead man's shadow. Then we make our stand, she said. Until help arrives, or until there's no one left to hold. That's not very reassuring, Captain. I'm not here to reassure you, Corporal. I'm here to keep you alive. There's a difference. Deck's jaw tightened, but he nodded, understood, or thought he did. The storm howled, the bunker shook, and somewhere in the distance, maybe real, maybe imagined, Elena thought she heard the sound of something moving, something that wasn't wind, wasn't snow, something human. She walked to the nearest window, pressed her hand against the cold glass, looked out into the white void, saw nothing. Felt everything, Captain? Shaw again. Always Shaw, reading her, knowing her better than she wanted to be known. I'm going out, Elena said. Absolutely not. The storm? I'm going out, she repeated, harder this time. There's a ridge, 30 meters north. Elevated position, clear sight lines to all approaches. If something's coming, I'll see it from there. You'll freeze to death in 20 minutes. I've done worse. Shaw stepped in front of her, blocking her path. Captain, with all due respect, move, Lieutenant. They locked eyes. 2 operators. Two people who'd seen things, who understood. But Shaw was a father, had people to go home to. Elena hadn't, not for 8 years. So it was always going to be her, always going to be the ghost. If you're not back in an hour, Shaw said quietly, I'm sending Flint after you, fair, and if you die out there, I'm writing a very strongly worded report about how you violated protocol. I'll try to survive just to spare you the paperwork. Shaw stepped aside. Good luck, Captain. Alina grabbed her rifle, her cold weather gear, enough ammunition to maintain a position for an hour. Maybe two, if she was lucky. Luck. That, again, she headed for the door. Flint moved to open it for her, but before she could step outside, a voice stopped her. Captain, Deck. Of course it was Deck. She turned, looked at him, at the concern in his face, the kind of concern that said he actually cared whether she lived or died, the kind she didn't deserve. Be careful out there, Deck said. Alina almost laughed, almost told him that careful was for people who still believed in tomorrow. Instead, she just said, you too, Corporal. Watch the perimeter. Trust Shaw. And if you hear shooting, she paused. Let the weight settle. Heroes die first. Then she stepped out into the storm before he could respond, before she could see Danny's face looking back at her. The wind hit like a freight train, stole her breath, tried to knock her off the ridge. But Elena leaned into it, fought through it, found the rhythm. One step, another. The rifle slung across her back, her hand on her sidearm, her eyes scanning the white void for shapes that shouldn't be there, for ghosts that weren't hers. 30 meters. She counted the steps, 32, 35, and then the ground rose, the ridge, exactly where she'd scouted it on the map, a natural elevation, rocks providing minimal windbreak, not cover, but enough. Elena dropped to one knee, brought her rifle up, coloped the approaches, north, east, south, west. Nothing, but her instinct screamed otherwise. 8 years of combat had taught her to trust those instincts. Trust the feeling in your gut that said danger was close, even when your eyes couldn't see it. She keyed her radio. Viper, Winter Ghost, I'm in position. Shaw's voice crackled back. Copy, Ghost. Stay warm and stay alive. Working on it, Elena settled into the cold, let it sink into her bones. Familiar, almost comforting. She'd always felt more at home in winter. In the places where everything was stripped down to survival, where the only question that mattered was, can you keep breathing for one more minute? Yes, always yes. Because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering, and remembering meant movement. Elena's scope snapped north, 1 kilometer, maybe less, shapes in the snow, too regular to be natural, too deliberate to be animals. People, she counted, 1, 3, 5, 8, 12, 12 hostiles, moving in staggered formation, weapons visible, advancing on the outpost. Elena's heart didn't race, didn't skip, just settled into that familiar rhythm, the combat rhythm, the one that said, this is what you're good at. This is why you're still breathing. This is your purpose. She keyed the radio. Viper, Winter Ghost. I have movement. 1 click northeast, 12 targets, staggered line. They know we're here, copy Ghost. Shaw's voice was tight, controlled. Can you confirm hostile intent? Elena watched them move. Watched the way they used the terrain, the discipline in their formation, the weapons they carried, RPGs, automatic rifles. Enough firepower to turn the bunker into a tomb. Confirmed, she said. They're coming to kill us. Silence on the radio. Just the wind. Just the sound of Shaw processing. Calculating. Deciding. Then, weapons free on your mark. Ghost. Take the shot. Elena's finger found the trigger. She breathed in, out. Let her heart slow. Let the world narrow to the crosshairs, to the target, to the mathematics of wind and distance and gravity. This was what she was, what Danny had wanted to be. What Deck was trying to become, this was the cost. She exhaled, whispered, I'm sorry, Danny, and pulled the trigger. The crack of the rifle cut through the storm like thunder. The hostile dropped, and the night, the long, terrible night that would change everything, finally began. The first kill was always the loudest, not because of the gunshot. Elena had fired thousands of rounds in her career, knew the sound intimately, the crack, the echo, the way it traveled through cold air and announced to the world that someone had just made a permanent decision. No. The first kill was loudest because of what came after. The silence, the absence where a heartbeat used to be, the sudden understanding that you'd erased someone's entire future with 3 pounds of trigger pressure. Elena had stopped hearing that silence years ago. The hostile dropped. Clean, instant, center mass. He was dead before his could process the impact, before his body understood it was no longer viable. 11 left. Confirmed kill, Elena said into the radio. Her voice flat, professional. The voice of someone reporting weather, not death. 11 remaining. They're scattering, cop eye. Shaw's voice crackled with static, with tension. Can you track them? Alina swept her scope across the terrain. The hostiles had broken formation, smart, scattered into the wind and snow like seeds, using the storm for cover, using the terrain, making themselves hard targets, but not impossible targets. They're going to ground, Elena says, northeast quadrant. Using the rock formations, they'll regroup and try to flank. How long? 3 minutes, maybe 4. That's not enough time to reinforce. Then don't reinforce. Elena's eyes never left the scope. Funnel them. Kill the exterior lights on the east approach. Make them think we're blind. Let them commit. Pause. Shaw calculating. Running scenarios. Then copy. Lights going dark. Viper out. The radio went silent. Elena stayed frozen, her breath creating small clouds in front of her face, frost forming on her eyelashes, her trigger finger numb but always steady. Because this was what she was good at. This was where the ghost lived, in the space between heartbeats, between breaths, between the moment you identified the threat and the moment you eliminated it. No fear, no hesitation, no Danny. His name like a prayer, like a curse. I'm doing it again, becoming the thing you thought was heroic, the thing that killed you, but she didn't stop. Couldn't. Because 30 meters behind her was a bunker full of soldiers who didn't deserve to die, who had families, futures, people who loved them, and one of them was Danny's best friend, the boy she'd failed to protect by proxy, the one wearing her brother's dream like borrowed clothes. Elena's jaw tightened. She forced Danny's ghost back into the box, slammed the lid, locked it. Later, she could break later. Right now, she had 11 hostiles who needed to stop breathing. Movement, 200 meters. 3 shapes moving in a wedge formation. Elena's rifle tracked, acquired. The lead hostile visible for 3 seconds. 2, 1. She fired. The hostile went down. The other 2 dove for cover. 2 down, Elena reported. 3rd broke left, lost visual. Where? Shaw's voice tight. East approach. He's yours now, copy. Elena swept her scope back north, looking for the other 8. They were out there, somewhere, moving, planning, deciding how to kill her and everyone she was trying to protect. The radio crackled. Shaw's voice, contact east, 1 hostile, 50 meters in closing, take him, a pause. Then the distant crack of Shaw's rifle, a sound Elena felt more than heard through the wind. Tango down, Shaw said, but they're learning. They're not going to keep walking into our scopes. No, they wouldn't. Because whoever was leading this assault knew tactics, knew how to adapt, how to survive, which meant they'd been trained. Probably military, probably Viper. This is Ghost. Elena's voice came out harder. Be advised, these aren't insurgents. This is a professional unit. Likely special forces. Possibly foreign. Copy. How do you know? Because amateurs would have rushed us by now. Professionals adapt. Another pause. Then Shaw. Queter. What are we dealing with here, Captain? Elena thought about the intelligence reports, the thermal signatures, the unconfirmed movement in the sector. Command had suspected something, had sent her to confirm. She'd confirmed. But now she needed to survive long enough to report it. Someone who wants this outpost bad enough to risk a blizzard, Elena said, which means we have something they need. Location. Probably the outpost controlled the high ground. controlled access to 3 major installations within 50 kilometers. Taking it would give hostile forces a staging area, a foothold, a way to hurt a lot of people. Then we make our stand, Shaw said. Simple, final, no matter what, copy. Elena kept scanning, kept watching. Minutes crawled by. 5, 10. The cold sinking deeper into her bones, her fingers going numb inside her gloves, her core temperature dropping. Stage 1 hypothermia creeping in. She'd been colder, Syria, 18 hours in that factory, no heat, no rest. Just killing and surviving and trying not to think about the fact that Danny was dead and she was still breathing and nothing made sense anymore. This was familiar. This was Ghost. We have movement on sensors. Shaw's voice cut through. East side, 2 contact. I can't see them from here. Neither can I. The smoke's blocking thermals. Smoke? Elena's mind processed this, cataloged it, filed it under. Escalation. They're using smoke grenades, she said, closing the distance. Getting ready for breach. Can you reach them? Elena swept her scope east, saw the gray clouds mixing with white snow, turning the world into soup, into chaos, into exactly the kind of environment where visibility became guesswork, negative. They're inside my effective range, but I don't have line of sight, then fall back. Get to the bunker before, negative. Elena's voice went cold, sharp. I maintain this position. They commit to the breach. I'll have clear shots when they pull back, Captain. That's an order, Lieutenant. Silence. The kind that said Shaw wanted to argue. Wanted to pull rank even though she outranked him. Wanted to do something other than watch his commanding officer freeze to death on a ridge while hostiles closed in. But all he said was, "Copy. We're weapons hot." Waiting for your call, Elena stayed frozen. Watching, the smoke getting thicker, the shapes inside it moving with purpose, with coordination. And then thunder, not from the sky, from below, from the bunker, the unmistakable sound of an explosion. Floor detonation wasn't loud so much as felt, a deep, bone-rattling percussion that traveled through rock and earth and reinforced concrete, the kind that said, structure compromised, integrity failed. Everyone inside just got their world rearranged. Elena's heart, that organ she thought was long dead, suddenly kicked into overdrive. Viper, report. She was already moving, already abandoning the ridge, already sprinting through neat snow deep toward the bunker. Shaw, report. Static. Lieutenant Shaw, respond. More static. Then garbled, breaking up. Breach, floor, contact, gunfire, automatic weapons. Sound of close quarters combat, the sound of everything going wrong at once. Elena ran faster, her legs burning, her lungs screaming, the rifle slamming against her back with each stride. 30 meters, 20, 15. She hit the bunker door at full speed, didn't hesitate, just ripped it open and dove inside. Into hell, the interior was chaos, smoke everywhere, dust, debris. The floor had a gaping hole in the center, 6 feet wide, 6 feet deep, a tunnel breach. They dug under the foundation, had been digging for days, maybe weeks, planning this, waiting for the storm, waiting for the satellites to go dark, waiting for her. 5 hostiles climbing up through the breach, already inside, already firing. Flint was down behind an overturned crate, blood on his face, weapon up, returning fire in controlled bursts. Marcus had his sidearm out, covering the medical supplies. Everett was pressed against the wall, his rifle jammed, his hands shaking, his eyes wide with the kind of fear that said, "This isn't training anymore." Shaw was at the radio, trying to call for help that wouldn't come, trying to reach command through a satellite network that was already dead, and Deck was in the center of the bunker, firing, missing, his movements frantic, panicked, the opposite of everything Elena had tried to teach him in the 15 minutes they'd known each other. Hostile rushed him from the left, close range, too close. Deck turned too slow. The hostile's rifle coming up, finger on trigger. Elena moved on instinct, pure reflex, no thought, just muscle memory and 8 years of knowing how to kill faster than other people could decide to. She fired 3 times. Center mass. The hostile dropped before his synapses could complete the electrical signal to pull his trigger. Deck stared at the body, at Elena, at the space between them where death had almost happened. "Stay down," Elena shouted. Not a suggestion, a command, the kind that bypassed conscious thought and went straight to hindbrain survival. Deck dropped, Elena transitioned, swept right. Another hostile climbing through the breach. She put 2 rounds in his chest before he cleared the opening. He fell back into the tunnel, gone, 3 left inside, 2 still in the tunnel, maybe more behind them. The overhead light shattered, sparks, glass. The bunker plunging into emergency red lighting that turned everything into a nightmare painting. Blood looked black, shadows looked alive, and every hostile became a ghost. "Shaw!" Elena's voice cut through the chaos. "I need a count. 4 down," Shaw shouted back, his hands flying over the radio, trying channels that wouldn't respond. 2 wounded. Everett's rifle is jammed. We're at 40% ammunition, 40%, against an enemy that was still coming. This was bad. The roof exploded. Not a metaphor, not hyperbole. The actual roof. Concrete and rebar and steel plating turning into shrapnel and dust as shaped charges detonated in perfect synchronization along the support beams and through the breach, through the sudden gaping wound in the ceiling. Through the storm itself, 6 more hostiles, fast roping down, weapons hot, already firing before their boots hit ground, double breach, simultaneous assault from below and above, coordinated, professional. Exactly what Elena would have done if she were trying to kill everyone in this bunker. "Contact roof," Flint roared. He swung his rifle up, fired at the repelling hostiles, dropped one. The body fell through the hole and landed hard, didn't move, but 5 more were within sensing. And the 2 from the floor breach were still active. And somewhere outside were 6 more hostiles waiting for their moment. 13 against 6. With 2 already wounded, 1 weapon jammed, and ammunition running low. The math was bad. The math was... Elena stopped thinking, started moving. She didn't take cover. Didn't hunker down behind the crates and sandbags where logic said she should be, where survival instinct demanded. She walked forward, into the center of the chaos, into the crossfire, into the exact place where every tactical manual said you'd die fastest. And she started killing. The first hostile was still on his rope, 3 meters from the ground. Elena put a round through his chest. He jerked, let go, fell the rest of the way, impact. Done, the second hostile hit ground and spun toward her. Rifle coming up, fast, trained, not fast enough. Elena's rifle barked twice, both rounds center mass. The hostile staggered, tried to stay upright, failed, collapsed. A third hostile fired at her from 10 feet away, point blank. How he missed was physics and luck and maybe something else. Something that said death had marked Elena a long time ago and wasn't ready to collect yet. She didn't miss. 3 rounds. Tight group. The hostile went down and stayed down. Movement left. Elena spun. Another hostile. Close, too close. No time to aim. No time to think. She let her rifle drop on its sling. Drew her sidearm with her left hand mid-stride. Transition smooth. Automatic, and fired. Once, twice, 3 times. The hostile's head snapped back. He fell behind her. Elena didn't see him, didn't hear him, just felt the displacement of air, the presence of threat, that sixth sense that separated operators who survived from operators who became statistics. She dropped to one knee. The hostiles burst going over her head. Missing, wasting ammunition. Elena twisted, came up under his guard, drove her sidearm into the soft tissue under his chin, pulled the trigger. The bunker went quiet, not silent. Nothing with that much smoke and dust and fear could be silent. But the shooting stopped. The hostiles stopped coming. And for 3 seconds, maybe 4, there was just breathing, just heartbeats, just the sound of 11 bodies that used to be people hitting the floor in various states of no longer viable Status, Shaw's voice. Raw, shaking, everyone check in. Brennan, mobile, Marcus, calm despite everything. The medic's voice, Hale. I'm good. I'm Jesus Christ. I'm good, Everett. Not calm, not even close. But alive, Cade, wounded but functional. Flint, leaning against the wall, one hand pressed to his ribs, blood seeping through his fingers. Not arterial, not fatal, but not good, Wyatt. Deck's voice cracked, broke, came out barely above a whisper. I'm here, He didn't finish. Just stared at Elena, at the bodies around her, at the sidearms still raised, still ready. At the woman who just killed 6 hostiles in under 30 seconds with the kind of efficiency that looked like choreography, like art, like something you couldn't learn, something you had to become. Shaw crossed the bunker, stopped in front of Elena. His face was pale, shocked, the look of someone who just watched something impossible and didn't know how to file it in his brain. Captain, he said, I'm fine. Elena's voice came out wrong, too flat, too empty. She cleared her throat. Tried again. Flint needs medical attention. Everett needs a new weapon. And we need to secure both breaches before the next wave comes. Next wave. Shaw's eyes went to the hole in the roof, the hole in the floor, the bodies. You think there's more. I know there's more. Elena finally lowered her sidearm, safed it, holstered it. Her hands were steady, perfectly steady, which was wrong, which should have been impossible after what she'd just done. We took down 11, maybe 12, but the assault was coordinated. Professional. That means there's a commanding officer, someone directing this, and they're not going to stop until we're dead or they are. Then we need to evacuate. Get to higher ground. Better position, agreed. Elena looked at the bunker, at the shattered roof, the compromised floor, the bodies turning the space into an abattoir. We can't maintain this position. It's compromised. Where do we go? Elena thought fast, ran scenarios. The ridge was too exposed now. The hostiles knew where she'd been. Would target it first. The valley was a kill zone. Too open, too vulnerable, but north. 30 meters north, past the ridge. Higher elevation, rock formations providing natural cover. The upper ridge, Elena said. We fortify there, use the terrain, make them come at us uphill through the storm. That ridge is exposed. We'll freeze. Here too. Elena gestured to the roof, to the storm pouring in, to the temperature that had already dropped 10 degrees. At least up there we'll see them coming. Shaw looked like he wanted to argue, wanted to find another option, wanted to be anywhere but here, making life and death decisions with a woman who'd just become something other than human in front of his eyes. But he just nodded. I'll prep the team. We move in 5, make it 3. Shaw moved, started barking orders. Marcus went to Flint with his medical kit. Everett grabbed a rifle from one of the dead hostiles, still shaking, still processing, and Deck was still staring at Elena, standing in the exact spot where she'd saved his life, where she'd killed a man who'd been 2 seconds from ending him. His face was pale, his hands were trembling, his eyes kept darting to the bodies, to the blood, to the reality that he'd almost died. Elena crossed to him, slow, deliberate, giving him space to process, to break, to do whatever he needed to do, Corporal, she said quietly. Deck's eyes snapped to hers, hazel, wide, filled with something that might have been gratitude or might have been horror. Hard to tell. You saved my life, he said, the words coming out rough. That hostile he had, me? I didn't see him. I saw him. Elena's voice was gentle, gentler than she'd been all night, because this was the moment where Deck either became a soldier or became a casualty, where the shock either hardened him or shattered him. And I neutralized the threat. That's my job. That's what I do. You killed 6 people in 30 seconds. Yes, like it was nothing. It wasn't nothing. Elena's hand went to her chest, to the dog tags, to Danny. It's never nothing. But it was necessary. They were trying to kill you, kill all of us, so I stopped them. That's what survival looks like, Corporal. It's not pretty. It's not noble. It's just math. Us or them. And I choose us every time. Deck swallowed hard. I froze. When that hostile came at me, I couldn't move, couldn't think. I froze and I almost, but you didn't. Elena put her hand on his shoulder, squeezed, felt him shaking under her palm. You're still here, still breathing. First firefight, everyone freezes, everyone panics. The ones who survive are the ones who learn from it, who figure out how to keep moving next time. Will there be a next time? She wanted to lie, wanted to tell him this was over, that they'd won, that the worst was behind them, but she owed him the truth. Out Danny's best friend, that much, yes. He said, there will be a next time, probably in the next hour, and when it comes, I need you functional, I need you thinking, I need you to remember that fear is good, but panic gets you killed. Can you do that? Deck's eyes searched hers, looking for somethings. Assurance, confident, permission to be terrified, but still fight. He found it. Yes, ma'am, he said. Stronger now. Stay a dear. I can do that. Good. Elena released his shoulder. Step back. Now grab your gear. We're moving to the upper ridge. And Corporal, ma'am, stay close to me. The words came out before she could stop them, before she could remember that attachment was dangerous, that caring was a liability, that protecting people meant watching them die. I'll get you through this. Deck nodded. And there was something in his face, something that looked like trust, like belief, like the way Danny used to look at her before the world taught him that belief got you blown apart. But Elena turned away before she could see it any longer. Before it could break something in her that was barely holding together, the team gathered, grabbed weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, everything they could carry. Everything that meant the difference between 3 more hours of breathing and becoming permanent fixtures in a Montana bunker. Move out, Shaw ordered. Stay tight, watch your spacing. If you fall, you get left. Harsh, but honest. Because carrying wounded through a blizzard while being hunted was suicide. Was how you turned one casualty into 5. The team moved. Single file, Shaw at point, Marcus helping Flint, Everett in the middle with his new rifle, Deck right behind him, Elena at the rear, always at the rear, because the back was where threats came from, where someone needed to be ready to turn and fight and buy the others time to run, where the expendable people went. They stepped out into the storm, into the wind and snow and dark, into temperatures that were now pushing -40, into the night that wanted them dead. Elena took one last look at the bunker, at the bodies, at the blood already freezing on the floor. 11 confirmed kills. Not the record that had earned her the call sign Winter Ghost. But enough. Enough to know she was still good at this, still capable, still the thing that went bump in the night when the monsters came calling, still broken, still hollow, still the woman who'd traded her soul for a body count and didn't know how to get it back. She keyed her radio. Command, this is Winter Ghost. Viper Outpost is compromised. We are relocating to secondary position. Request immediate extraction and air support. Over. Static. Command, do you copy? Over. More static. The satellite's still dark. The storm's still raging. The world's still not giving a damn whether 6 soldiers lived or died tonight. Elena lowered the radio, looked north, at the ridge where they were headed, at the rocks that would provide cover, at the position they'd have to maintain until help arrived, or they ran out of ammunition, or the cold killed them first. Let's move, she said, and followed her team into the dark. The climb was hell. 30 meters might as well have been 30 miles. The snow was waist deep in places, the wind trying to rip them off the mountain, the temperature dropping with every step until breathing hurt, until exposed skin went numb, until fingers stopped responding to neural commands and became useless lumps at the ends of your arms. Alina could feel hypothermia setting in. Stage 2, maybe stage 3. Her core temperature dropping, her body shutting down non-essential functions to keep the heart and brain alive, sacrificing extremities, sacrificing future mobility, sacrificing everything that wasn't immediately necessary. But she kept moving, because stopping meant dying. And she couldn't die yet. Not when Deck was 10 meters ahead of her. Not when Danny's best friend was still breathing, still trusting her to keep him that way. Almost there, Shaw's voice barely audible over the wind. 20 meters, 20. Elena counted steps, forced her legs to keep lifting, to keep pushing through snow that felt like concrete, like the universe trying to hold her in place, trying to bury her. Maybe it should. Maybe she'd earned that. 8 years of surviving when Danny hadn't. 8 years of killing and breathing and pretending she was still human. But not yet. Not tonight. The ridge rose up out of the dark, natural rock formations providing a windbreak. Not shelter, but enough to keep the worst of the storm off them. Enough to make survival possible for a few more hours. The team collapsed behind the rocks, gasping, shaking, ice coating their gear, their faces, their weapons. Marcus went to Flint immediately. The chief was pale, his breathing shallow, the wound in his ribs worse than he'd admitted, blood soaking through his tactical vest, through the bandages Marcus had applied in the bunker. Chief, Marcus's hands were already moving, cutting away the vest, exposing the wound. I need you to stay with me. Talk to me. Tell me about your kids. Flint's eyes focused, barely. 3, 2 boys, 1 girl. Ages, he coughed. Blood flecked his lips. Ages 12, 9, 7. Good, that's good. What are their names? James, Sarah, Michael. Each word cost him, but he kept talking, kept fighting. And James wants to be a pilot. Sarah wants to be another cough, a doctor. Michael wants to be like his old man. Then we need to make sure you get home to tell him that's a terrible idea. Marcus worked fast. Pressure, clotting agent, new bandages. His hands steady despite the cold, despite the fear. This wound isn't fatal, but you've lost blood. I need you to stay still, conserve energy. Let me do my job. Flint nodded, closed his eyes. Trusted. Elena watched from her position at the edge of the rock formation, her rifle up, scoping the approaches, looking for movement, for shapes that didn't belong, for the next wave because it was coming. She could feel it. That prickle at the base of her skull that said danger was close. That said the enemy hadn't given up, hadn't retreated, was planning, adapting, getting ready for the final push, Captain. Elena turned. Shaw was there, his face grim, his eyes hard with the weight of command, with the responsibility of keeping 5 people alive when everything was stacked against them. We need to talk, Shaw said quietly. Privately, Elena glanced at the team, at Marcus working on Flint, at Everett huddled against a rock trying to stop shaking, at Deck staring at his hands like they belonged to someone else. She followed Shaw to the far side of the formation, out of earshot, into the kind of privacy where bad news got delivered. We're not going to make it, Shaw said. Not a question. A statement, the kind that came from running the numbers and not liking the answer. Elena didn't respond, just waited. Let him lay it out. We've got maybe 40% ammunition left, Shaw continued. Flint's down. Everett's barely functional. Wyatt's in shock. The storm won't break for another 8 hours minimum. And even if command gets the satellites back online, air support can't fly in these conditions. I know. So what's the play? Shaw's voice dropped. Harder. Because I'm out of options. I'm out of miracles. And I need you to tell me there's a way we survive this that doesn't end with us all freezing to death or getting overrun. Elena looked out at the storm, at the white void where 11 hostiles, maybe more, were regrouping, where someone was making the same calculations Shaw just had, was coming to the same conclusion. Soldiers on that ridge were going to die unless something changed. There's always a way, Elena said. But her voice lacked conviction, lacked the certainty Shaw needed to hear. Is there? Shaw stepped closer. Because I've read your file, Captain. I know about Syria. I know you held that factory for 18 hours against impossible odds. I know you're the best operator I've ever served with. But even you can't maintain a position with no cover, no ammunition, and no backup. I can buy time. Time for what? For command to figure out we're dying up here? For someone to authorize a rescue that won't come? Shaw's jaw tightened. Or are we talking about you pulling another one of those stunts where you decide you're expendable and everyone else isn't. Elena's eyes snapped to his. Careful, Lieutenant. No, you be careful. Shaw didn't back down. Because I see what you're doing. I see you putting yourself between Wyatt and every bullet. I see you taking risks that should have killed you 3 times tonight. And I need to know if you're trying to save him or trying to get yourself killed. The words hit like a fist, like the truth usually did. Elena's hand went to the dog tags, to Danny, the weight she'd been carrying for 8 years and couldn't put down. He's 23, she said quietly. Same age as she stopped, couldn't finish. Couldn't say Danny's name out loud because saying it would make it real. Would make the loss something other than abstract. Shaw's expression softened, just a fraction. I know. I know who he is. I know what he means to you. You don't know anything. I know his mother lost someone in Afghanistan. I know Danny Wyatt was Deck's best friend. And I know you're trying to save him because you couldn't save Danny. Shaw paused. But Deck isn't your brother, Captain, and dying for him won't bring Danny back. Elena's throat closed, her eyes burned. For one terrible second, she thought she might break. Right here, right now, in front of her executive officer. But the walls held. Barely. Just barely. I'm not trying to die, she said. I'm trying to keep him alive. There's a difference, is there? Shaw asked. Because from where I'm standing, you're about 3 bad decisions from martyrdom. And I can't let you do that, not just because you're my commanding officer, but because we need you, all of us. Not just Wyatt. We need you functional. We need you making decisions that keep all of us alive, not just the one who reminds you of your brother. The words were harsh, true, the kind of truth that cut deep because it was accurate. Elena forced herself to breathe, to count, to do what the therapist had taught her before she'd stopped going. 1, 2, 3. You're right, she said finally. You're right. The admission stuck in her throat. I'm compromised, emotionally, and that's dangerous for everyone. So what do we do? Elena looked back at the team, at Deck sitting against a rock with his rifle across his lap, still in shock, still processing, still alive because she'd moved faster than physics should have allowed. We make our stand, she said. We use the terrain. We make them pay for every meter. And we survive until extraction comes. And if extraction doesn't come, Elena met Shaw's eyes. Let him see the truth. The cold reality that came from 8 years of surviving impossible situations. Then we die, knowing we didn't make it easy for them. Shaw held her gaze, reading her, deciding whether to trust her, whether to believe she could separate mission from emotion, duty from grief. Finally, he nodded. Okay, we do it your way. But Captain, if you start making decisions that get us killed because you're trying to save one person, I'm pulling rank. I don't care if you outrank me. I don't care if it's insubordination. I will relieve you of command. Clear? Clear. Shaw studied her for 3 more seconds, then turned and walked back to the team. Elena stayed where she was, alone, staring out at the storm, at the shapes moving in the dark, at the threat that was coming whether she was ready or not. Her hand closed around Danny's dog tags, squeezed, felt the metal edges cut into her palm, draw blood, pain, something real, something other than the numbness that had lived in her chest for 8 years. I'm sorry, she told Danny's ghost. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I'm still here and you're not. But I swear on everything I am, I'm not letting Dak die tonight. Not him. Not like you, even if it kills me. The radio crackled, static breaking in. A voice, not command, not friendly, not help. A voice she hadn't heard in 7 years, but would recognize until the day she died. Cross. The voice was cold, precise, Russian accent. We know you're listening. Elena's blood turned ice. No. 7 years I've waited, the voice continued. 7 years since you killed my son in Syria. Since you looked me in the eye and let me live. Did you think I'd forget? Colonel Viktor Andrei Volkov, the commander of the Russian mercenary unit she'd wiped out. The father of the young soldier, 24 years old. barely older than Deck, who died in that factory firefight, the man who'd watched Elena eliminate his entire team and had survived because she'd made a choice, a merciful choice, a choice she'd regretted every day since. I found you, Volkov said, tracked you, waited for the perfect moment, the storm, the satellite blackout, the isolated outpost, everything I needed to take from you, what you took from me. Elena's hands were shaking. For the first time all night, shaking with rage, with fear, with the understanding that this wasn't random, wasn't opportunistic. This was personal. Surrender, Volkov said. And I let the boy live, the young one, 23 years old, same age my Alexei was. I know he matters to you. I see how you protect him. So I make this deal. You for him, your life for his. One trade, one chance. The radio went silent. Elena stood frozen, her mind racing, her heart hammering, every instinct screaming at her to move, to act, to do something. But what? She couldn't surrender, couldn't trust that Volkov would keep his word. Men like him didn't forgive, didn't forget, would kill Deck the second she gave herself up, but she also couldn't ignore it, couldn't pretend she hadn't heard, because Deck was listening. The whole team was listening. And they just heard someone offer to spare them if she died, Captain. Shaw's voice behind her. Quiet, careful. Tell me that wasn't. It was. Elena's voice came out wrong. Hollow. Colonel Volkov, Russian mercenary commander. Syria 2017, I killed his unit, his son. He survived, and now he wants revenge. Yes, through us, through Wyatt, yes. Shaw moved to stand beside her. Both of them looking out at the storm, at the shapes that might be hostiles or might be nothing, at the man who'd turned this from a mission into something else, into a reckoning. You can't give yourself up, Shaw said. Not a question. A statement. It's a trap, I know. He'll kill all of us whether you surrender or not, I know. So what's the play? Elena breathed, forced her mind to work, to think tactically instead of emotionally, to be the operator instead of the sister, the commander instead of the woman carrying 8 years of grief. We make fortify this position. We make him come to us. And when he does, her voice hardened. We eliminate every last one of them, even Volkov. Elena's hand found the dog tags one more time, felt Danny's name etched in metal, felt the weight of every decision that had led her here. To this ridge, this storm, this moment, especially Volkov, she said, and meant it. The attack came 40 minutes later, not subtle, not tactical, just a straight assault. 20 hostiles, maybe more, surging up the slope through the storm with the kind of reckless aggression that said they knew time was running out. That said their commander had decided overwhelming force was the answer. That said Volkov was done playing. Contact. Shaw's voice cut through the wind. All approaches, north, east, west, they're coming from everywhere. Elena's rifle was already up, already tracking. The first hostile appeared through the snow at 60 meters, then another. Then 5 more, too many, too fast, weapons free. Elena's voice carried over the chaos, overlapping fields of fire, make every shot count. The ridge erupted in gunfire, Shaw firing controlled bursts from the north position, Marcus covering the east with his sidearm, Everett on the west, his hands finally steady, his fear burned away by necessity. And Deck was next to Elana, his rifle up, his breathing fast but even, his eyes tracking targets with focus that hadn't been there before. Learning, adapting, surviving. Elena fired, dropped a hostile at 40 meters, shifted, acquired another target, another down, but they kept coming, like a tide, like something inevitable, pushing through the killing zone, taking casualties, not caring, because Volkov had given them the order and soldiers followed orders, even when orders meant death. We can't hold this, Everett shouted. There's too many. We hold until we can't. Elena fired again. Again. Her magazine running low. Conserve ammunition. Controlled hostile broke through on the east side. Close. Too close. Marcus shot him twice. Center mass. The hostile went down 3 meters from their position. Another tried the west. Everett dropped him. Then another. Everett's rifle clicking. Empty? I'm out, Everett's voice cracked. Take his. Marcus pointed to a dead hostile. Reload and get back in the fight. Everett scrambled, grabbed the rifle, fumbled with the magazine, his hands shaking again. Fear returning now that the adrenaline was fading. Now that reality was setting in. Deck, Elena's voice sharp. Left side. Two contacts closed fast. Deck swung his rifle left. Fired, missed. Fired again. Hit one. One. The hostile spun, fell. The second one kept coming. Elena's rifle cracked. The second hostile dropped. Focus, Elena shouted at Deck. Breathe. Aim. Fire. Stop thinking and just do it. Deck nodded, turned back to his sector, fired. This time he didn't miss. The assault kept coming, wave after wave, hostiles using the storm, using the terrain, using their numbers. Elena's rifle went dry. She dropped the magazine. The magazine slapped in her last one. 20 rounds, that was it. That was all she had left. 20 rounds to hold off an army. The math was impossible, the situation untenable. But Elena had been in impossible situations before, had survived when survival wasn't supposed to happen. Syria, the factory, 18 hours. She could do this. She could movement right, fast, a hostile flanking, getting around their position, getting behind them. Elena spun. Too late. The hostile's rifle already up. Already aimed at Deck, time slowed, the way it always did in moments like this, when life and death hung on fractions of seconds, on reaction speed, on who pulled the trigger first. Elena moved, not away, not to cover, not to safety, toward Deck, toward the hostile, toward the space where the bullet was already traveling. She hit Deck with her shoulder, full force, knocked him sideways, out of the line of fire, into cover behind a rock, and felt the impact. The round caught her high, left shoulder, not center mass, not fatal, but the force of it spun her, knocked her off balance, sent her sprawling onto the frozen ground, pain, white hot, immediate. The kind that said tissue damage, muscle torn, maybe bone chipped, but not arterial, not lethal. Elena rolled, brought her rifle up with her right hand, her left arm useless, hanging. Blood soaking through her tactical vest. The hostile was closing. 5 meters. 4. His rifle tracking her. Finger tightening on trigger. Elena fired first. 3 rounds. Center mass. The hostile dropped. But more were coming. Always more, Captain. Deck's voice, panicked, horrified. He scrambled to her. You're hit. I'm fine. Elena forced herself up, one-handed, her left arm screaming. Get back to your position. But That's an order, Corporal. Deck stared at her, at the blood, at the wound, at the woman who'd just taken a bullet for him, at his best friend's sister, who he didn't know was his best friend's sister. Go! Elena shoved him with her good arm. Now, Deck went, back to his sector, back to fighting, back to surviving because she'd made sure he could, Elena assessed. The wound was bad but manageable. She could still move, still fight, still pull a trigger, still make her stand. Marcus appeared beside her, his medical kit already open. Captain, I need to. Later, Elena's voice was steel. After. Right now we fight. You're losing blood after. Marcus looked like he wanted to argue. But a hostile appeared on their flank. Marcus fired, dropped him, turned back to Elena after he agreed. The battle raged, minutes blurring together, gunfire, screaming wind, bodies falling, the team holding barely, by inches, by seconds, by sheer refusal to die. And then, sound, different, cutting through the storm, rotors, Elena's head snapped up, through the snow, through the dark, lights, red and green navigation lights, growing closer, a helicopter, cutting through the storm, against all protocol, against all sense. But there, extraction, Shaw's voice nearly broke with relief. Extraction inbound. The hostiles heard it too, saw the lights, and made their decision. One final push. All or nothing. Kill the soldiers on the ridge before the helicopter arrived, or fail completely. They surged forward, every remaining hostile, throwing themselves at the position with suicidal desperation. Elena fired. Her last magazine down to 5 rounds. 4, 3, the helicopter descending, 50 meters below the ridge. The crew chief waving frantically, Go! Elena shouted. Everyone move! Now, Shaw grabbed Flint. Marcus helped. They scrambled down the slope toward the helicopter, Everett, right behind them, moving fast. Knowing this was the only chance, Wyatt, Elena's voice cut through everything. Move! But Deck didn't move. Stood frozen, staring at Elena, at the blood, at the wound, at the woman who kept saving him. Go! Elena fired her last round, dropped her rifle, drew her sidearm. Get to the helicopter. Not without you. That's not your choice, Elena fired. Another hostile down. Move, Corporal. That's an order. Deck's face twisted. Anguish. Guilt. The knowledge that he was leaving her, but he went. Ran down the slope. Slipping, sliding, making it to the helicopter. Hands reaching out, pulling him inside safe. Elena smiled. Actually smiled because Deck was safe. Because Danny's best friend would make it home. Would live the life Danny couldn't. Would be the thing she'd failed to give her brother. A second chance. She turned back to the hostiles. They were close now. 10 meters. 8. Her sidearm had maybe 6 rounds left. Not enough, not even close. She raised it anyway, because she was Elena Thorne, the woman who made her stand when there was no stand left to make. The woman who captained Deck's voice. She turned. He was at the helicopter, leaning out, reaching, his face desperate. Come on, he screamed. Run. And Elena, broke and bleeding, empty Elena, ran. Down the slope, legs pumping, left arm useless, right hand still gripping her sidearm, hostiles right behind her, rounds kicking up snow at her feet, at her sides, missing by inches, by luck, by something. Helicopter lifting, starting to ascend, Deck leaning out farther, his arm extended. Jump, he shouted. Elena launched herself. One final push, one final decision. Muscles screaming, lungs burning, the air taking her. Deck's hand caught hers. Gripped tight, desperate, he pulled. Shaw grabbed her vest. Together they hauled her into the helicopter as it surged upward. Elena collapsed onto the deck, gasping, shaking, blood everywhere. Her shoulder on fire, her vision blurring, but alive. Still alive. The helicopter banked hard, pulling away from the ridge, from the hostiles, from Volkov's face, somewhere in the storm watching his revenge escape. Elena turned her head, looked at Deck, at the boy, the man who'd refused to leave her, who'd reached back, who'd saved her the way she'd saved him. Why, she managed. I ordered you because, Deck said, his voice rough, raw, because you saved me 5 times tonight, and because he stopped, swallowed, because I just realized something. What? Your dog tags. I saw them earlier, when you were bleeding. They fell out of your shirt. Elena's heart stopped. No, they said Daniel Wyatt. Deck continued, his eyes locked on hers. My best friend, my brother, the one who died 8 years ago in Afghanistan, tears on his face now, streaming, freezing. You're her, Deck whispered. You're Elena, Danny's sister, the one he wrote about, the one he said would come home and teach us to shoot, the one his voice broke. Elena couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't do anything but stare at this boy, this man, who just figured out the truth, who just understood why she'd protected him, why she'd taken a bullet for him, why she couldn't let him die. Your mother already lost Danny, Elena finally said, the words torn out of her, bleeding. She's not losing you too. Deck's face crumbled. He pulled her into a hug, careful of her wound, but tight, desperate. He talked about you all the time, Deck said against her shoulder. Said you were his hero. Said you were the toughest person he knew. Said a sob. Said you'd keep us all safe. Elena's chest broke open. 8 years of grief pouring out. 8 years of holding it together, of being strong, of being the ghost. She wrapped her good arm around Deck, around Danny's best friend, around the boy she'd saved because she couldn't save her brother. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry I couldn't. You were there tonight, Deck said. You were there when I needed you. When we all needed you, the helicopter climbed higher, away from the storm, away from the mountain, away from the ridge where Elena Thorne had fought her last battle as the Winter Ghost, and toward something else, something that might looked like healing if she could figure out how to let it. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and regret. Elena had always hated hospitals, hated the fluorescent lights that made everyone look half dead, hated the beeping monitors that counted heartbeats like they were keeping score, hated the way time moved differently here, slower. Like the universe wanted you to feel every second of waiting, of worrying, of wondering if this was where the story ended. She'd spent 3 days in one after Danny died, hadn't been injured, hadn't needed medical care, just couldn't make herself leave, couldn't make herself go home to the apartment where his things still were, where his toothbrush still sat in the bathroom, where his jacket still hung by the door like he was coming back any minute. So she'd stayed in that hospital waiting room, watching families get news, good news, bad news, the kind that changed everything, until Shaw had found her, had pulled her out, had told her that staying there wouldn't bring Danny back. Nothing would bring Danny back. Now here she was again. Different hospital, different state, but the same fluorescent lights, same slow motion time, except this time she was the patient. The surgery had taken 4 hours, bullet removal, tissue repair, bone fragments cleaned out. Doctors had been optimistic, professional, had used words like clean wound and full recovery and lucky, lucky. That word again, Alina stared at the ceiling and tried to feel lucky. Tried to feel anything other than the hollow ache that had lived in her chest for 8 years. That had maybe gotten a little smaller on that helicopter ride when Deck had held her, when he'd said Danny's name out loud, when the secret had finally stopped being a secret. But now she was alone, in a room that smelled like chemicals and failure, with her left arm in a sling, with painkillers making her thoughts fuzzy, with nothing to do was dangerous. A knock at the door. Elena's eyes shifted. Come in. The door opened. Shaw stepped through. He looked tired, worn, the kind of exhaustion that came from too many close calls, too many almost deaths, too many decisions that could have gone wrong, Captain, he said, his voice careful. Merd, how are you feeling? Like I got shot. That's fair. Shaw crossed to the chair beside her bed, sat, his movement slow, like he was giving her time to tell him to leave, to want privacy, to not want company. She didn't tell him to leave the team? Elena asked. Alive. All of them, Shaw's face showed relief, the kind that came from beating odds that shouldn't have been beaten. Flint's in surgery. They're repairing the damage to his ribs. Doctors say he'll make a full recovery. Marcus and Everett are fine, shaken, but fine. And Deck? Shaw's expression shifted, became something else, something that looked like understanding, like knowing. Wyatt's outside, Shaw said quietly. Has been since you got out of surgery, won't leave, won't eat, won't sleep, just sits in that waiting room chair and stares at the door like if he looks away you might disappear. Elena's chest tightened. He knows. About Danny? Yeah. He told me. Shaw leaned back, told me everything about how you've been carrying his best friend's dog tags for 8 years, about how you didn't know who he was until the firefight, about how you took a bullet for him because you couldn't save your brother. Shaw, I'm not judging, Captain. Shaw's voice was gentle, the kind of gentle that came from a father of 3 who understood grief, who understood loss. I'm just saying, I get it now. I get why you were so protective, why you were willing to die for him. I wasn't trying to die, weren't you? Shaw met her eyes, held them, because from where I was standing, you made about 6 decisions last night that should have gotten you killed. And the only reason they didn't is because apparently the universe isn't done with you yet. Elena looked away. At the ceiling, at the fluorescent lights that hum like insects. I don't know how to do this, she said quietly. How to be around him. How to look at Danny's face and not. Her voice broke. Just a crack. Just enough. He lost his best friend, and now he knows I'm the sister Danny talked about. The one who was supposed to come home and didn't. The one who failed. You didn't fail. I did. The words came out hard. Final. Danny died because I wasn't there, because I was too busy being a good soldier to be a good sister, and now Deck knows that. Knows I'm the person who let Danny down. Stop. Shaw's voice cut through. Sharp, authoritative. Stop doing that. Stop making Danny's death your fault. He was a soldier. He made a choice. He did his job. And yes, it got him killed. But that's not on you. That's on war. That's on bad luck. That's on a universe that doesn't give a damn about who deserves to live and who doesn't. Alina's throat closed. Her eyes burned. Deck doesn't blame you, Shaw continued. Softer now. He told me that too, said Danny. Used to write letters about how proud he was of you, how you were out there saving people, making a difference, being the hero he wanted to be. I'm not a hero, maybe not. Shaw shrugged. But you saved 6 people last night, eliminated over 20 hostiles, maintained a position that should have been overrun in the first 5 minutes, took a bullet for a kid who didn't even know you were his best friend's sister. He paused. That's not nothing, Elena. The use of her first name hit different. Personal, human. Not captain to lieutenant. Just 2 people who'd survived something together. He wants to see you, Shaw said. Deck. He's asking permission. Won't come in unless you say it's okay. Elena's hand went to her chest, to where the dog tags should have been. But they weren't there. The hospital had taken them, had cataloged them with her personal effects. Corporal Daniel James Wyatt. She'd worn those tags for 8 years, had never taken them off, had felt wrong, naked, incomplete without them. But maybe it was time. Send him in, Elena said. Shaw nodded, stood, headed for the door, stopped with his hand on the handle. For what it's worth, Shaw said, I think Danny would be proud of you, not for the body count, not for the medals, but for saving his best friend, for keeping Deck alive when you couldn't keep him alive. Then he left before Elena could respond. The door closed. Silence. Just the beeping monitors. Just Elena's heartbeat counting down the seconds until the door opened again. Deck stepped through. He looked terrible, pale, exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his hair a mess, his uniform rumpled, like he'd been wearing it for 3 days straight, which he probably had. But his eyes were clear, focused, locked on Elena with an intensity that made her chest ache. Hi, Deck said, his voice rough. Unused. Hi. They stared at each other. Deck standing by the door, Elena in the hospital bed with her arm in a sling. A million things to say. No idea how to say them. Finally, Deck crossed the room. Slow, careful, like he was approaching something fragile, something that might break if he moved too fast. He stopped beside her bed, looked at her arm, at the sling, at the bandages visible beneath her hospital gown. Does it hurt? He asked. Yes, good. The word came out bitter, angry. It should. Because you're an idiot. Elena blinked. Excuse me? You took a bullet for me. Deck's voice was shaking now, trembling with emotion he couldn't contain. You stepped in front of a gun. You could have died. You almost did die. And for what? For me? For some rookie you barely knew? You're not some rookie. I know that now. Deck's jaw clenched. Now I know I'm your dead brother's best friend. Now I know you've been carrying his dog tags for 8 years. Now I know why you looked at me like you'd seen a ghost. Because you had. You saw Danny, and you decided I was worth dying for because he was worth dying for. Deck, don't. He held up his hand. Don't tell me it was just tactics. Don't tell me you were doing your job. Because I was there. I saw your face when you realized who I was. I saw you break, just for a second. Just enough. Tears on his face now. Streaming. Not hiding them, Danny wrote about you, Dex said. Sent me letters. Told me about his sister, who was the toughest person he knew, who could outshoot anyone, who was going to come home and teach us everything, who was his hero. His voice cracked, and then he died. And thought that dream was gone forever. Dex stepped closer, close enough that Elena could see the gold flecks in his hazel eyes, could see Danny's smile in the curve of his mouth, could see her brother's ghost wearing a stranger's face. But you were there, Deck whispered. Last night, you were there, and you saved me over and over. Because you couldn't save him. Yes, the admission torn out of Elena, bleeding raw, because I failed him, because I wasn't there when he needed me, because I was too busy being a soldier to be a sister. You think Danny blamed you? I know he did. Then you're wrong. Deck reached into his pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper. Old, worn, the edges soft from being handled too many times. This is the last letter Danny sent me, 2 weeks before he died. I've read it 1,000 times. And there's a part, he unfolded it. There's a part I need you to hear. He cleared his throat, started reading Deck. I got another letter from Elena today. She's in Syria, doing classified stuff she can't talk about. But she sounds good, sounds strong, sounds like she's making a difference. And I'm proud of her, so proud. Because she's out there saving people, being the kind of soldier I want to be, the kind who doesn't quit, who brings everyone home. She's my hero, man. And someday I'm going to be just like her. Deck's voice broke. He looked up from the letter. He didn't blame you, Deck said. He was proud of you. He wanted to be like you. And if he'd known that 8 years later you'd be taking bullets for his best friend, he would have been even prouder. Elena couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. The words hitting like rounds. Center mass, destroying the walls she'd built brick by brick over 8 years. I miss him, Dex said. Every mission, every time I put on this uniform, I miss him. Me too, but last night, Dex's hand reached out, hesitated, then landed on Elena's good shoulder. Gentle, careful. Last night, I felt like he was there, like he was watching through you, protecting me through you. Like maybe he sent you to save me because he couldn't. The dam broke. Elena's face crumbled, tears streaming, 8 years of grief pouring out, 8 years of holding it together, of being strong, of being the ghost. Gone, all of it gone. Careful of her wounded arm, but tight, desperate, and Elena, broken, bleeding Elena, let herself be held, let herself cry. Let herself feel for the first time since August 17, 2016. I'm sorry, she sobbed against his shoulder. I'm so sorry I couldn't save him. I'm sorry I wasn't there. I'm sorry. Stop. Deck's voice firm. Stop apologizing. You didn't fail, Danny. You honored him by being the soldier he wanted to be, by saving people like me, by making your stand when everyone else would have broken. He pulled back, looked her in the eyes. Your mother already lost Danny, Deck said, repeating the words Elena had said on the helicopter. But she didn't lose you. And my mother, his voice caught, my mother didn't lose me because of you. Because Danny's sister was there when I needed her. Elena's hands found his face, held it, looked at this boy, this man, who'd just given her something she thought she'd lost forever, Pap Ascension to forgive herself. Thank you, she whispered. For what? For keeping his memory alive. She stopped, smiled through the tears. For not dying on that ridge, Deck laughed. Broken, wet, but real, yeah, well. He wiped his eyes. Someone very scary told me that heroes die first, so I figured I'd better not be one. They sat like that, in the hospital room, with the fluorescent lights humming, with the monitors beeping, with 8 years of grief, finally finding a crack to escape through, and for the first time since Danny died, since the universe took her brother and left her with nothing but dog tags and guilt, Elena Thorne felt like maybe she could learn to breathe again. The offer came on a Tuesday. Elena was in her apartment in Virginia. The same apartment she'd lived in for 6 years. The same one with Danny's things still boxed up in the closet. The same one she kept meaning to leave but never did. Because leaving meant moving on. And moving on meant accepting. She was sitting on her couch with her laptop open. Physical therapy exercises pulled up on the screen. Her left shoulder still weak, still healing. The doctors said another month, maybe 2. And she'd have full range of motion again. And then what? Back to the field? Back to being Winter Ghost? Back to the thing she'd been before that night on the ridge? She didn't know. Didn't know if she could go back, if she wanted to go back, if there was anything left to go back to. Her phone buzzed. Text message, Shaw. New instructor position opening at the training facility. Command wants you for it. Teach the next generation. Make sure they don't die for stupid reasons. Interested? Elena stared at the message. Read it 3 times. Tried to figure out what she felt about it. Instructor. Teaching. Sharing what she knew. Making sure other soldiers survived what she'd survived. Making sure other families didn't lose what she'd lost. It made sense. Tactically, practically, she had the experience, the knowledge, the skills, but could she do it? Could she stand in front of a classroom full of rookies and not see Danny in every face, not see Deck in every cocky smile? Could she teach them to survive without teaching them to become ghosts? Another text, Deck. Coffee? Have something to tell you. Elena smiled. She'd been meeting Deck for coffee every week since the hospital. Awkward at first. Stilted conversation. 2 people trying to navigate a relationship that started with bullets and blood. But it had gotten easier. Deck talked about Danny, about memories, about the things they'd done as kids, the trouble they'd gotten into, the dreams they'd had, and Elena listened. Let herself remember her brother as a person, not a ghost, not a name on a stone. But a kid who'd laughed too loud and dreamed too big and died too young. She texted back, usual place, 20 minutes. 20 minutes later, she was sitting in a coffee shop that smelled like espresso and normalcy, waiting, watching people come and go, people with regular problems, regular lives. People who didn't carry body counts and dog tags and ghosts. Deck walked in, spotted her, smiled. That smile, Danny's smile, but also Deck's, becoming less of one and more of the other with every meeting, with every conversation. He sat down across from her, 2 coffees in his hands, black for him, too much sugar for her, because that's how Danny used to drink it. And some habits died hard, so Deck said, I got news. Depends on your perspective. He took a sip. I got accepted into the instructor program, starting next month. They want me teaching close quarters combat and tactical decision-making. Elena's eyebrows raised. You teaching? You were a rookie 3 months ago, I was. Deck shrugged. But apparently surviving an assault by over 20 hostiles with a legendary operator looks good on a resume. Who knew? 23 hostiles and 1 very angry Russian colonel. That, too, Deck's smile faded, became something else, something serious. Actually, that's why I wanted to talk to you. He reached into his jacket, pulled out an envelope, official looking. D-Seal, this came yesterday, Deck. He said, slid it across the table. It's addressed to you. But it was delivered to me, I think because of Danny. Because of our connection. Elena picked up the envelope, turned it over, felt the weight of it. Heavy, important. She opened it, pulled out the letter inside, started reading, and stopped breathing. It was from Volkov, handwritten, in careful English. The penmanship precise, controlled Captain Thorne. I write this from a place you will never find. I write this because I owe you truth. 7 years ago, you killed my son. Alexei Volkov, 24 years old, my only child, my entire world, and I hated you for it, hunted you for it, spent years planning my revenge. But when I watched you on that ridge, when I saw you protect that boy, when I saw you take a bullet for him, I understood you were protecting him the way I would have protected Alexei, the way any parent protects their child, with everything, with your life if necessary. And I realized that killing you would not bring my son back, would not ease my grief, would only create more grief, more loss, more families broken by revenge. So I am done hunting, done hating, done letting my son's death define the rest of my life. I do not ask for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. But I offer you peace, real peace. The kind that comes from 2 parents who loved their children and lost them recognizing each other across the battlefield. Go home, Captain Thorne. Teach your soldiers. Honor your brother. Live the life he cannot. I will do the same for my son. Viktor Volkov, enclosed with the letter, was a photograph. Young Alexei Volkov, smiling in civilian clothes, holding a soccer ball, looking exactly like what he was, a kid, someone's son. Someone who'd been loved, Someone who died because Elena had pulled a trigger. She set the letter down, her hands shaking, her throat tight. He let us go, Dex said quietly, on that ridge. When the helicopter came, he could have pushed harder, could have overwhelmed us, but he pulled back, let us escape. Because he saw you protecting me. Dex's voice was gentle, understanding, and he recognized what that meant, what you were willing to sacrifice. Elena looked at the photograph again, at Alexei's face, at the boy who would have been Dex's age now if she hadn't killed him. I took someone's son, she whispered, in a war zone, during combat. While he was trying to kill Sue, Dex reached across the table, put his hand over hers. You did your job, Elena. You survived. That's not murder. That's not something to carry guilt over, isn't it? No. Firm. Final. Danny wouldn't want you carrying this. Wouldn't want you turning into someone who can't forgive herself, who can't move forward. Elena looked at him, at Danny's best friend, at the boy she'd saved. At the man who was trying to save her now, Shaw offered me the instructor position. She said, "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know." Elena pulled her hand back, wrapped it around her coffee cup. "I don't know if I can stand in front of rookies and teach them without seeing Danny, without seeing you, without seeing all the people I couldn't save. Then don't teach them to survive." Deck leaned forward, intent. Teach them to live. Teach them that being a soldier doesn't mean being a ghost, that you can do this job and still be human, still feel, still care. I don't know how to do that. Then learn. Deck smiled. Danny smiled. I'll be there in the same program, teaching the same recruits. We can figure it out together. Yeah, Deck's smile widened. Danny would have liked that, his sister and his best friend. Teaching the next generation, making sure they don't make the same mistakes we did. Elena thought about it, imagined walking into a classroom, seeing 20 rookies staring back at her, cocky, confident, convinced they were ready for something they couldn't possibly understand. Imagine teaching them, not just tactics, not just how to kill, but how to survive with their humanity intact, how to come home still recognizing themselves in the mirror, how to honor the dead by living well. Okay, she said. Okay, I'll do it, yeah? Yeah. Elena picked up Volkov's letter, folded it carefully, put it back in the envelope. Someone very smart once told me that I could honor Danny by teaching others to survive. Think it's time I listened. Deck's face lit up. Pride, relief, joy. And Elena realized that somewhere in the past 3 months, somewhere between the hospital and the coffee shops and the slow, careful rebuilding of something that looked like family, she'd started to heal. Not completely. Grief didn't work like that. Didn't have an expiration date. Didn't just disappear because you wanted it to. But the edges had softened. The weight had lightened. The ghost had become less of a presence and more of a memory. A good memory to Danny, Dex said. Raising his coffee cup, Elena raised hers to Danny. And to all the soldiers were going to bring home, they drank. And for the first time in 8 years, Elena Thorne felt like maybe the story wasn't over. Maybe it was just beginning. The first day of class was harder than any firefight. Elena stood at the front of the training facility classroom and looked at 20 recruits staring back at her. 20 faces, 20 sets of eyes, 20 cocky attitudes wrapped in fresh uniforms, and every single one of them reminded her of Danny. Deck was in the back. Guest instructor, moral support, the person who'd promised to step in if she started drowning, who'd promised to remind her that she could do this, that she wasn't alone. "My name is Captain Elena Thorne," she said, her voice steady, professional, the captain's voice. "For the next 8 weeks, I own you. Your training up to this point has made you competent. My job is to make you survivors." A hand shot up. Kid in the third row, dark hair, cocky grin, the kind who thought he knew everything. His name tag said Harris. Yes, Recruit Harris, ma'am. Harris's grin widened. "With all due respect, we've already been through hell. We know what we're doing." The classroom went quiet. everyone watching, waiting to see how the new instructor would handle the challenge, the disrespect, the attitude. Elena stared at Harris, just stared, let the silence stretch, let him start to squirm. Stand up, Harris. He stood, still grinning, still confident. You know what you're doing, Elena repeated. Is that? Yes, ma'am. You've been through drills, scenarios, simulations, yes, ma'am, and you think that makes you ready for combat, for the real thing, for the moment when someone aims a rifle at you with the specific intention of ending your existence. Harris's grin faltered. Yes, ma'am. Then let me tell you something, Recruit Harris. Elena's voice went cold, hard, the voice she used when she needed someone to listen, to really listen. You don't know shit. You know drills. You know controlled environments. You know theater. But you don't know what it's like when the shooting starts for real. When you're 3 seconds from dying and every decision matters. She stepped closer, close enough that Harris could see her eyes, could see the weight in them. The cost, I've been in combat, seen things you haven't, lost people you haven't. And I'm going to tell you right now, the ones who think they know everything are the ones who die first. The ones who survive are the ones who admit they're scared, who listen, who learn. Harris swallowed, the grin gone. So when I stand here and tell you that you don't know what you're doing, Elena's voice dropped lower. I'm not insulting you. I'm trying to save your life because I've watched good soldiers die for stupid reasons, and I'm done watching that happen. She stepped back. Now sit down, Harris. And if you interrupt me again, you'll be running laps until you remember that respect isn't optional. Harris sat fast. Anna turned to address the whole class. Some of you are going to wash out. Some of you are going to realize this isn't what you thought and quit. That's fine. Better to figure that out here than in the field. But for those who make it through, for those who are willing to admit they don't know everything and actually learn, I'm going to teach you how to survive, how to bring your team home, how to do this job and still recognize yourself in the mirror when it's over. She paused. My brother was a soldier, Danny Wyatt, Afghanistan, 2016. He died doing this job, and I've spent the last 8 years carrying that, letting it hollow me out, turning myself into something that was good at killing but not much else. The recruits were silent now, listening, really listening. But 3 months ago, something changed, Elena continued. I was in a firefight, mountain outpost, blizzard, over 20 hostiles, and there was this kid, this rookie who didn't know what he was doing, who froze when the shooting started, who should have died. Her eyes found Deck in the back. He nodded, permission, support. But he didn't die, Elena said, because I kept him alive. Not because I'm a hero, but because I couldn't let him die the way my brother died. Couldn't let another family get that news. Another flag-draped coffin. Another name on a stone. She stopped. Let the weight settle, and in the process of keeping him alive, of fighting for him, of taking a bullet for him, I remembered something I'd forgotten. What's that, ma'am? One of the recruits. Quiet, serious, actually interested. Elena smiled, small, sad, but real, that the point of being a soldier isn't to be the best at killing. It's to be the best at protecting, at bringing people home, at standing between the people you care about and the things that want to hurt them. She looked at each recruit, let them see her, really see her. My brother died because I wasn't there to protect him, to teach him, to give him the skills that might have kept him alive. I can't change that. Can't bring him back. Can't undo 8 years of grief. Her voice hardened. But I can make damn sure you don't make the same mistakes he did, that you don't die for stupid reasons, that you learn what you need to know to survive and come home and live the lives you're supposed to live. Silence. Complete. Total. Then Harris raised his hand again, this time no grin. Just seriousness, ma'am. How do we start? Elena almost smiled. By shutting up and listening, by admitting you're scared, by trusting that I've seen things you haven't, and I know how to keep you alive through them. They taught together for the next 8 weeks. Elena handling tactics and combat fundamentals, Deck teaching close quarters and decision making, both of them sharing stories, lessons, kind of hard earned wisdom that came from surviving things that should have killed them. The training was brutal, designed to break them down, to strip away the arrogance, to show them what real combat looked like. Night operations in sub-zero temperatures, ambush drills with limited ammunition, close quarter scenarios where one mistake meant failure. And through it all, Elena and Deck watched, corrected, pushed. Week 1, the cocky ones started breaking, started realizing they weren't as ready as they thought. Week 2, the scared ones started finding courage, started understanding that fear was a tool, not a weakness. Week 3, the ones who thought they knew everything started asking questions. By week 4, they were starting to look like soldiers. Harris was struggling. The kid who challenged Elena on day 1 was now the one who froze during the ambush drill, who couldn't pull the trigger when it mattered. Elena pulled him aside after. Private, away from the others. "Talk to me," she said. "What's going on in your head?" Harris looked at his hands. "I keep thinking about what you said, about people dying, about making mistakes, and I freeze, because I don't want to be the one who gets someone killed." Elena recognized that look, that fear. She'd seen it in the mirror for 8 years. "I see my brother in you," Elena said quietly, "and that terrifies me. But I can't protect you by keeping you weak. I protect you by making you strong." Harris looked up. "What happened to your brother, ma'am?" "He died brave. And I'm going to make sure you live brave." Something shifted in Harris's face. Understanding, determination. The next drill, he didn't freeze. Week 8, the final exercise of the Viper outpost scenario. Defend a position against superior forces, limited resources, no backup, just survival. Elena and Deck watched from the observation platform. Watched Harris lead his team, watched him make mistakes, adapt, learn, watched him survive. "He's good," Deck said. "He's learning." Elena's voice was proud. "They all are." The exercise was brutal. 6 hours of sustained pressure, hostiles coming from multiple directions, ammunition running low, team members going down. But they held. 18 of 20 recruits made it through. 2 casualties, recruits who'd made critical mistakes, who'd learn from them, who'd be better next time. When it was over, Harris approached, exhausted, sweating. "But alive, Captain," he said. I wanted to thank you." "For what?" Harris smiled. "Tired, real, for teaching me that confidence without competence gets you killed." He stopped. "For caring enough to make sure we make it home." Elena's chest tightened. In a good way. In a way that said maybe this mattered. Maybe she was doing something that honored Danny, that made his death mean something. "Pass it on," she said. "When you're out there for real, when some rookie is running their mouth and doesn't know what they're facing, you be the person who shows them, who teaches them, who keeps them alive." "Yes, ma'am." Harris saluted, turned, walked away. Dex stepped up beside Elena. "You did good. We did good." Danny would be proud. Yeah, Elena's hand went to her chest, to where the dog tags used to be. She'd given them back to Danny's mother, to Margaret Wyatt, in a ceremony 2 weeks ago that had involved more tears than words, but also closure, understanding, permission to move forward. I think he would. The memorial service was small, intimate, just the original team plus a few others, standing on the site where Viper Outpost used to be, where 11 bodies had frozen in the snow, where Elena had become something other than a ghost. The bunker was gone, decommissioned, buried, but they'd placed a marker, simple stone, no names, just words. They held the line. Elena stood in front of it, Deck beside her, Shaw, Flint, Marcus, Everett, all of them alive, all of them changed, all of them carrying the weight of that night 3 years ago. "It's strange," Everett said, his voice quiet, "being back here. Remembering, strange good or strange bad?" Marcus asked. "Both," Everett shrugged. I still have nightmares sometimes. Still wake up thinking I'm back in that bunker. Still hear the gunfire. That ever go away? Flint's voice was rough, older. He'd retired last year, spent his days with his kids now, teaching them to fish, to throw a baseball, to be anything other than soldiers. No, Elena said. But it gets different. It gets easier to live with. She looked at the stone, at the words, at the testament to something that should have been a disaster but wasn't, because they'd survived. All of them. Against odds that shouldn't have been beaten. I used to come back to places like this and feel nothing, Elena continued. Just empty. Like I'd left pieces of myself behind and couldn't get them back. And now? Shaw asked. Now I feel like I did something that mattered. Elena's voice was steady, strong, not just surviving, but making sure others could survive too. Teaching them, preparing them, giving them what Danny didn't have. Dec's hand found her shoulder, squeezed. 6 soldiers, 6 survivors, 6 people who'd looked death in the face and decided to live anyway. Captain Thorne? Elena turned. A young soldier was approaching, 22, maybe 23. Female, confident but not cocky. The kind of confidence that came from training, from preparation, from having teachers who gave a damn. Lieutenant Reeves, Elena said. What are you doing here? Heard about the memorial. Wanted to pay respects. Reeves stopped. Saluted. You saved my life, ma'am. During training. When I froze during the ambush drill, you pulled me aside, told me fear was okay, told me how to use it instead of letting it use me. I remember I deployed 6 months ago, Afghanistan. And there was a moment, Reeves's voice caught. There was a moment when I froze again, when the shooting started and I couldn't move, and I heard your voice telling me to breathe, to focus, to trust my training. What happened? I didn't freeze for long, maybe 3 seconds, but I came back, remembered what you taught me, and I made it through. Reeves smiled, tired, grateful, and I'm here, standing, breathing, going home to my family. Because you taught me how. Elena felt her throat tighten, felt the weight of it, the responsibility, the legacy. This was what it meant, what teaching meant, not just sharing knowledge, but planting seeds, trusting they'd grow, knowing that somewhere out there, soldiers she trained were surviving because of her, coming home because of her, living because Danny couldn't. Thank you for telling me, Elena said. Thank you for not giving up on us, ma'am. Reeves saluted again, turned, walked away. Dec looked at Elena, pride in his eyes. That's the 3rd one this year. 3rd what? 3rd soldier who came back to thank you, to tell you that you saved their life. I just taught them what I know. No, Dec's voice was firm. You gave them what Danny needed, what I needed, what we all needed. Someone who cared enough to make sure we were ready. Someone who turned grief into purpose. They drove to Arlington together, to the place where Danny Stone sat among thousands of others, where heroes were buried, where the cost of service was made visible. Margaret Wyatt was waiting, 71 years old now. Gray hair, soft eyes, the kind of woman who'd lost a son but hadn't let it destroy her, who'd chosen to keep loving, keep living, keep finding joy in the years she had left. She smiled when she saw Elena, opened her arms. Elena hugged her. This woman who'd lost Danny, who'd almost lost Dec, who'd been gracious enough to welcome Elena into her life, to forgive her for not saving her son, to understand that some things couldn't be prevented. Only survived I brought these, Elena said. She pulled out Danny's dog tags, the ones she'd carried for 8 years, the ones Margaret had given back to her last year with the words, he'd want you to have them, want you to remember, but not to carry them as a burden, as a reminder that you're still here, still fighting, still making a difference, I thought. Elena's voice caught. I thought maybe we could leave them here, with him. Let him know that we're okay, that Dec's okay, that the dream he had of soldiers coming home, it's real. Because we're making it real. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. But she was smiling. He'd like that. Together, they placed the dog tags on Danny's grave, the metal catching sunlight, gleaming, a memorial, a promise, a testament, Corporal Daniel James Wyatt, November 3, 1993, August 17, 2016, beloved son, brave soldier. Forever 23, Elena touched the stone. One last time, I found them, Danny, she whispered, the ones you wanted me to save, and I won't stop until every one of them makes it home. That's my promise. That's my mission. That's what your life meant. Placed his hand on the stone. Miss you, brother, he said, every day. But you were right. Your sister is the toughest person I know, and she's been taking care of me. The way you would have stayed like that. Two people who'd loved Danny in different ways, who'd survived when he hadn't, who were trying to honor him by living well, by making his death mean something, by refusing to let grief be the end of the story. Finally, Elena stood, looked at Margaret, at Deck, at the people who'd become her family, not by blood, but by choice, by shared loss, by understanding. Ready? Deck asked. Yeah. Elena smiled. Small, sad, but real. Let's go teach some kids to stay alive. They walked away from the grave, from the stone, from the past, and toward the future, toward classrooms full of recruits, toward soldiers who needed teaching, toward a purpose that gave grief meaning. And somewhere, maybe in memory, maybe in something more, Danny's ghost smiled, because his sister had finally learned what he'd always known. That strength wasn't about never breaking. It was about breaking and choosing to heal and using that healing to make sure no one else had to break alone. That the line worth making your stand for wasn't the one on the battlefield. It was the one between despair and hope, between giving up and keeping going, between being destroyed by loss and being transformed by it. Elena Thorne had made her stand, and she wasn't letting go. Not now. Not ever, because that's what survivors did. They held, they fought, they taught, they loved, they lived, and in living, in choosing to keep breathing, keep teaching, keep making a difference, they honored the ones who couldn't, the ones who'd given everything, the ones who'd believed that people like Elena would carry the torch, would make their stand, would make their sacrifice mean something. Danny had believed that. And Elena Thorne, Winter Ghost, legendary operator, sister, teacher, survivor, was going to spend the rest of her life proving him right. One soldier at a time, one life at a time, one impossible night at a time, until the last lesson was taught, until the last soldier came home, until the line finally held forever.